Well, what's up, everybody? It's Steve the Hurricane here with another exciting episode of A Drink with the Hurricane. Today, I'm going to go over the 2020 industry numbers on profit loss statements. This is something I'm very passionate about for you as the entrepreneur, to making sure that you are going to be set for success for the long term going forward. So, hope you got a notebook and a pen. Get your cup of coffee or beer or tea or wine, whatever you're drinking. Raise your glass and cheers. Let's get this started. A Drink with the Hurricane, the home care sales and marketing talk show that discusses all things growing your home care business. All right, my friends. So 2020 obviously was an interesting year. And, don't need to talk about COVID because we all have been affected by it and there's been enough talk about it. But let's just take a look at what we did last year and then how can we course correct so that we don't repeat the mistakes that we made last year, all right? Because this was something that it's actually scary to me, and I feel real sorry for a lot of folks out there because things aren't going the way that it should. And if we don't make changes, we're going to run into some very serious challenges. My job in serving you is to help you to prevent making the mistakes that people are making every single day so you can work smarter, not harder. So let's jump right into it right now. Now, as you see on the computer screen right here, this is the profit and loss statement straight from Home Care Pulse. And by the way, if you haven't picked up the Home Care Pulse report yet, you can use my discount code to save 25% off. It's Hurricane, all capital letters, the number 25, and then a percent sign. So Hurricane, HURRICANE, 25%. That'll give you 25% off the full price, and you can pick up your copy. I highly recommend it because there's a lot of great content and information, articles, etc. in there. Now, as you look at this, they break these revenue ranges down simply into 5 different categories. You have I call this the beginner, but believe it or not, a lot of agencies around the country who've been in business for 5 years, 7 years, they're not over $1 million yet. So I call this the under $1 million group. Then this group right here, even though it says 800,000, you see the average person surveyed at 1.2. So I'm going to call this the million to 1.5 million group. Then you have this group over here, which is pretty much 1.5 million all the way up to 3 million. The average person is doing 2 million here. And then you have the 3 million to the 5 million. These are like the leaders of the industry, and the average person surveyed is doing about $3.5 million in revenue. And then you have your masters, and the masters are the people who have mastered this business. They're generating the most amount of revenue on average. And your average master, as you can see as I'm moving my mouse, did about $7.5 million in total revenue last year. Now, as you scale down each of these, and I'm not going to go through all of them because it's self-explanatory and you can kind of see for yourself. I'm going to really talk about the first group, this middle group here, and then we're going to talk about the masters. Now, this first group right over here, people doing less than $1 million. Now, there are some factors. Again, a lot of folks got started last year. Your first year out, you're going to spend a lot of money to get established, etc. But for every person that's brand new, there's probably 2 or 3 people who have been around for a while and they still haven't broken $1 million ever yet either. I mean, just think about the United States of America. All small businesses, by definition, a small business is considered a business that's generating less than $5 million in total revenue. Once you break the $5 million mark by the United States government, you are recognized as what's considered a mid-sized company or larger. You probably have a certain amount of employees, above 50 to 100 employees. You're generating a certain amount of revenue. You've been established for a while, yada, yada, so on and so forth. So of all small businesses in the United States generating 5 million in revenue or less, there's 27 million small businesses doing that in the United States. Out of that 27 million, this is all industries, 25.5 million are not generating $1 million or more in revenue. To break $1 million in revenue, between 1 million and 5 million in revenue as a small business, that literally puts you in the top 5-6% of all small businesses. So just put that into perspective when you realize just how many folks fall into this first category right here, which is why I'm spending the time going over it. So now on the computer screen, I'm going to pull up my calculator just so we can calculate this so you can see in real time. I want to make sure you can see this and where I'm coming from with this. So I just opened it up. And here you go. So here's my calculator. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller so you can kind of see what all the expenses and things that I'm referencing are. Okay, so first line right here, this is one that's dark and boldened, right? It says total care expenses. So in this first group here, the average agency in this area is spending 65% of whatever they charge for services compensating caregivers. Now, as you see on the screen, I'm gonna move this calculator a little bit more so everybody can see it. I'll just put it over here for a second. All right. So you see, this includes wages, workers' comp, benefits, payroll taxes, reimbursement, yada, 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 right? 65% right off the top to the caregivers. Then everything in caregiver recruitment and retention, ads, background checks, retention bonuses, onboarding, yada, yada, yada. At this group over here, it's 5%. So let's add 5 more to it. That puts us at 70. Now you go down to sales and marketing expenses. People over here are spending more percentage than they probably should, but it's what you have to really get things going. The Small Business Administration recommends that folks spend 7 to 8% of their total annual revenue on all things sales and marketing to scale and grow it until you reach 5 million, and then that percentage should go down, which even the masters are doing the same over here. We'll get to those folks in a second. But the industry average for people doing less than $1 million is about 9%, which brings you up to 79%. And then last, you have your operating expenses. So your rent, your office, your executive team, so this is all of your team, not including the owners, scheduling software. If you're part of a franchise, you have a royalty, association membership, travel, entertainment, meals, and other operating expenses, not including the owner's salaries. 39%. So 40% actually, but I rounded up on the others. So let's round down here. And look at this. 118% of the revenue generated last year for people under $1 million, you literally spent 20% more than what you generated. If that is not screaming alarms, bells, and whistles to you, I don't know what else to say. You have got to make sure that you are raising your rates. You are putting too much of a percentage, not dollars, too much of a percentage here and probably down here as well. There's too much. This tells me that if someone's spending this much in their office staff, you have way too many staff members for your organization right now because you don't have the revenue to support it and you're spending too much in percentage compensating because you're not charging enough to your patients. Let's jump over here to this middle group, all right? Let's do this real quick. So these folks, they are at 64% for their caregivers, 3.2%, so let's just go 3% for their recruitment costs. Then we got 5% for the marketing, which is where they should be, all right? And then you got 21% for your office staff. Actually, let's round up here, 21.8. Let's make it 22% because I rounded down on the others, right? That's 94% of your revenue. That means in this group here, remember, the average person in this group was doing $2 million in revenue. 94%. So quick math. Let's just make it 95% because what's 1%, right? $2 million, okay? 95% means that you are spending $1,900,000 running your business. That leaves you with $100,000 left over. That is a huge problem. That's scary to me. You have a $2 million business and you only generated $100,000 in revenue for yourself. Maybe a little heavy on the office staff, but I'm going to say 20% is right where you should be. I mean, look at the masters of our industry. They're also at 20%. You're at the right spot there. Where does something have to give? right up here at this 64%, 65%, 64% right off the top. That's too much. It's too large of a percentage. We've got to raise our rates, right? Like I can't stress this enough. And I know some people are like, Steve, I understand, I get it. What I got to do? You got to have better sales processes. You have to have better sales. You have to have strong inquiry management skills, answering that phone, because when you're talking to a patient's family and they hear $30, $35 an hour, in some markets, $40 an hour. I have clients in Minnesota charging $40 an hour for services. And you know what? They're selling every single day. Every week, they sign up 4 or 5 new clients at $40 an hour. Why? Because they have the inquiry management skills on the phone, and they have the closing process when they sit down with the families, even though they're charging $3 to $4 an hour more than everybody else. But when they're charging $40 an hour, they can compensate caregivers $18 to $20 an hour, and that's only 50% margin. That leaves it so there's a lot of profit where it should be, which is about 15 to 20%. At the end of the day, when you add all these figures up, and let's just take a look at the masters just real quick to put it into perspective, right? The masters are giving away 68% of their revenue to caregivers right off the top. $7.5 million, 68% of it went to caregivers. Plus 2% for the recruitment, they're at 70%. You go over here, 3% for the sales and marketing, which makes sense because 3% of $7 million is still going to be about half a million in revenue on all things sales and marketing, right? 3% of $7.5 million. Yeah, you're coming up, you're knocking on the door of $500,000, right? It's probably more like maybe $400,000 in total revenue spent on sales and marketing, but it's a $7 million company. And then let's add that 20% for 20.5. So let's just go 21% for the operating expenses. And they're still at 94%. So here you have this big $7.5 million company. 94% of it, that leaves you with about $500,000 for yourself. $500,000 on $7 million in revenue. That's what that leaves you. That's mind-blowing to me. It's mind-blowing to me. The margins aren't where they're supposed to be. If something catastrophic happens, these companies go out of business. A master, and let me stop my screen so you can just see me. A master of this industry is somebody who's probably taking care of 2, 4, 1,000, 1,000 patients. And if their margins are that slim and something catastrophic happens and they have to go and spend 100%, 120%, like the people are lower on a totem pole, that company goes out of business. If that company goes out of business, you have 200, 400, 1,000 patients that have to get help somewhere else. 200, 400, 1,000 caregivers that have to find work somewhere else. This is one of the most important Drink with a Hurricane episodes I have ever done to tell you that you must look at your P&Ls. And if you are not generating, before you pay yourself as the owner of the company, if you're not generating at least 15% as profit net after all your expenses, you run the risk of closing out your company. There is no room for raises for your staff. There is no room for increasing revenue to your caregivers. There is no room for expansion, opening up other locations and continuing the mission and doing all the things that you want to do and living the way that you're supposed to. You're the business owner. You invested tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars in your business to get it to where it is. You should be that profitable. Business 101, straight out of micro economics when I was in college. Microeconomics, economics 101. The economics of a business should be operating at 15 to 20% profit margin when all is said and done. Anything less, you run the risk of something happening. So what am I saying here? Raise your rates. You have to do it. And I know it's a Steve, you're beating a dead horse. We understand, but you have to do it. If you're not doing it, then you're running a risk of eventually closing down your doors. And this is a high stress situation. Now, how do I raise my rates? You got to make sure that you understand how to answer that phone and manage an inquiry. You have to make sure that you understand how to sit down face to face and make a sale with somebody and get them to understand why you're charging what you do. Value add, value build. Hundreds of my clients around the country are operating at 15 to 20% profit margins because they got this. If you need help with this, this is why I am announcing my Home Care Millionaires Bootcamp, and you should come to it. Right now, early bird tickets are on sale. It's $1,000 to come to this event. And at this event, we're going to do three different things: sales and marketing to keep an abundance of referrals coming in of patients with great need. So this way you have people who are coming to you who need 56 hours, 84 hours, 24/7 care, an abundance of those. We're going to talk about operational support. What are the things that I need to properly manage both my staff and my caregivers and my patients, all three, so that I can retain my caregivers, get happy satisfaction results for my clients, which builds my reputation to get me more clients, as well as keeping my office staff from ripping their hair out and going crazy. And then the last part of it is, how am I going to increase my recruitment effort so that I can bring on more caregivers to meet the demand? It's everything you need to scale your business to multiple seven figures and beyond. Full price ticket for this event is $1,000. Early bird is on sale right now for just $599. That's literally 40% off. You cannot afford to miss this event. It is going to sell out. Register today because you know I'm going to give you everything you need to blow away the competition.